Hi, it's Lisa, and in this video we're going to log into Bellevue servers and use Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. In previous videos we looked at W3 Schools and wrote SQL in that interface and DB Fiddle, but in this video we'll use Microsoft SQL Server. Since we're going to log into Bellevue College servers, it's a little bit more complex, so make sure to read the assignment very carefully, including this link here on how to VPN. If you go to this page, and I've already opened it up, you see here, there's a video showing me VPNing in, so you might want to watch that ahead of time. There's some documentation from Bellevue College, so some common errors that you'll get. This is a good page for reference. Okay, so in this assignment, you're asked to log in to Bellevue College servers, and when you get in there, you'll see that the servers are numbered, and so you can see in the directions they're numbered 001 through 031, and what I'm asking you to do is think of the number that corresponds with the first letter of your last name. In my case, it's Harris, and that's the number 8. So that means I'm going to use the computer number 8. So please take a second to figure out what your number is and make sure to use that computer number. Okay, so I've followed the instructions here on where to go, and that takes me here. It's basically vpn.bellevuecollege.edu/N252, but when you hit enter, it'll auto-follow to a slightly different URL. But here's the login, and you want to use your Bellevue College login, so I'm going to do that right now, and then log in. And it'll just take a second, so I'm going to pause this video and resume once I'm in. Okay, I'm logged in, and again, my number, because my last name starts with the letter H, and H is the number 8 letter in the alphabet. I'm N252008, so I'm going to click on that server. All of them look the same. And I'll close this panel there. So it'll just take a second to pull up a number of things, including a control panel, which will close. We'll just give it a second. Yep, it's pretty quick. I was going to pause, but it's coming in. So when we get in, we'll be launching SQL Server Management Studio. It's you're VPNing in, so when you get in here, you can do everything you normally would on this virtual connection. So you can open a browser, you can log into Canvas from here, you could use Microsoft products like Word if you want to write something here. There's all sorts of other software tools that are here as well. So feel free to just take a look at the start menu and you'll or do a search. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ignore. And we ask that people do not permanently save files and folders on these servers because they will just be deleted. So you can't guarantee that anything you save here will be left overnight. I mean, temporarily, yes, but not, don't assume it'll be there 24 hours later. Okay, and I'm going to just close some of these windows. I'm just showing you what to expect. So, the tricky thing here is that since you're VPNing in, you have two start buttons, right? So this inner one is the VPN. The outer one, of course, is your computer. Similarly, up here, I want to close this server manager dashboard, and so I want the lower X button. Okay, and I'll just ignore again. And I'm going to use the inner start button here, and I'm going to start typing SSMS for SQL Server Management Studio. And you can see here it is. This is what we're looking for, and I'm going to click to start it up. And it may just take a second. You, of course, are more than welcome to install SQL Server Management Studio, not SQL Server Management Studio necessarily, but SQL Server Express, which is the free tool available by Microsoft, and it has everything you need. But some people just, don't have the time, don't have the resources for that, and so we allow them to connect to Bellevue College servers and use this. At some point we will set something up in the cloud, but right now it's hard for us to get something that's entirely free for students, and so until we do, we're using this method. So it might take a little bit of time for the first time, especially at the if this is the first time you've logged in since the beginning of the quarter. So I'll pause for a second until it's all ready to go. Okay, it's now up and running. Again, it might take a little bit of time the very first time you log in and start SQL Server Management Studio at the beginning of the quarter, but after that it should be faster. So here's something very important. When you get here, you want to make sure you're on the right server name. You don't want server 3, you do not want server 2, you just want this one here that doesn't have any particular server number. It just says N252 and then whatever your 3-digit number is. Again, mine's 8, but yours will correspond to your last name. So I'm going to click Connect, and in just a second I should see a number of databases that have been set up for you. Now, first thing I see are folders, but when I open up the yellow database folder, I should see a number of databases here. If this does not happen, if you receive an error message, make sure to go back and read through how to VPN. You can link to that from this assignment. Even up here, there's some information, but it will go over some common errors that you might receive and how to troubleshoot them. Even if you don't receive an error right now, you might at some point during the quarter. So you want to remember this assignment and come back to it as your source for how to troubleshoot those errors. And if you forget, just send me a message and I'll help you find it. Okay. So what I'm asking you to do in the instructions is find AdventureWorks LT, and we're going to query that database. So all of these are databases, this thing with the cylinder, and when you expand it, what a database is a collection of related tables. So that's why when I go to the tables folder here, I have all of these. And each of these is really, you can think of them like a separate spreadsheet. And you can think of the database as like a spreadsheet file, right? As we know, a spreadsheet file has a number of different spreadsheets within it that all look like tables. So it's very similar. I'm going to start a new query with this new query button. And then I'm going to tell it which of these databases I want to use. So I'm going to type use, and I can type in lowercase or uppercase letters. I'll leave it up to you, but there's use, and I'm going to zoom up a little. And I'm going to use AdventureWorks LT. Now I don't have to type it. I can if I want to, but I'm going to just drag it over. Okay, and do a semicolon here. So that tells it what database I'm using, and then I'm going to do select all. I'm going to start off select all from, now I can keep this all on one line, but it's easier to read if I move it down. Select all from, and I'm going to use products. So there it is. I'll put a semicolon on the end, and I'm going to go ahead and execute, and it'll run and hear all of the different records and fields for the products table. Things to notice in SQL Server Management Studio down at the bottom. The status bar will tell you there's 295 rows, and you can see these are, here are all of the different columns that you have all the way here to the end. A lot of these columns at the end you have this on every single table, like modified date, for example. But these in the beginning here are unique to this particular table. The primary, starting with the primary key, and then you can see name, some other things like color. Okay, what I want to do now is talk about another way to show all fields. First, I'm going to move the code down just so it's a little easier to read, and I'm going to get rid of the star. So instead of the star, what I'm going to do is drag over to write all the fields. Now I could just write them myself. So for example, I could drag them, I could write them. Let me just show you. I'm using the products table, so if I go to the products table and expand, and I go to columns and I expand, I have all the columns here, so I could one at a time drag them over. Here's product ID, and then I want to type a comma, and then here's name, right? And I can type a comma, and then just for fun, I'll skip to color, and I'll just put color here. Okay, so I'm going to run this, and you can see now I just have 3 columns. There are times when I just want, 3 particular columns for this particular table. Okay, Instead, though, what I'm going to do is add all the fields, but I sure don't want to drag them. Now I can type them, but that takes a long time too. So I could type them, and the nice thing is I get this IntelliSense menu. If I've already added the table down here, it knows which table I'm using. And as I'm typing, it will prompt me and say, hey, which one do you want? So I can arrow down, right? And I can keep typing. If I know it's name, for example, I can type name, hit tab, and then I want color. You know, if I'm not really sure what the name is, I could start typing the first couple letters of any word in the name of the field and then find it in the menu there. Name is blue, by the way, just because they did give it a very specific name, and name is a common word that's used in, you know, in programming, and so that's why that's there. It'll still run correctly. Okay, so if I run this, same thing. It'll run the same thing. But what I want are all the fields, and instead of using star, I'm going to drag the columns folder over here, and it will type them for me, which is really nice. So I'm going to take columns and drag it over right here and let go, and then you can see what it did. And there's lots of ways to do this, but what it did, and I'll zoom out a little bit, is it added all of the fields that I need for that particular table. And when I run this, it's the same as select all using the star, but there's better performance issues. So there may be times when you need to, you really want explicitly, you want all the fields, but you want to type them out like that. Okay, that's what I want you to do. I then want you to save this. So if we go look at the instructions, I'm asking you to save it. You're saving it as XXX products, where XXX is your last name. So let me go back here and hit the save button, and this will actually save it in a drive. So for example, if I wanted to save it, you know, on the desktop, right, I could go to this PC and I can go to the desktop and I could save it here, and I'll save it as Harris, right, and I'll save it as products. Okay, so I'm going to save it. And then I'll show you that on the desktop, if I go back to minimize this, there it is. There's that file. And if I were to double click on this right now, it would open up in, you know, it'd start up SQL Server. Okay. So that's part of this. The other part of this is I want you to run the code and then take a screenshot, right? So however you like to take a screenshot of not just the code, but also the results. And then you'll have two files, the screenshot file and the SQL file, and that's what you're going to submit here. Now I'll warn you that since you are doing this all on the remote machine, what you'll want to probably do is minimize this, you know, start up a browser and log into Canvas from here, and then submit those files, because it's not easy to move the files over. So that's how to do it for this setup number 3. And that's it for this video.